Well, hello and welcome to our safe distancing virtual hymn sing. Just a little hymn formation, if you will.
When we speak of a hymn, we're actually referring to what we've come to refer to as the text and the music together. Here we have the United Methodist hymnal. Perhaps it more appropriately would be referred to as the United Methodist hymnal and melodies. When we look at a hymn, the part that we sing and the text, the authors or the author and the composer are often listed, usually at the bottom on the right side, sometimes on the top, but most of the time on the bottom. In the case of How Great Thou Art, we see the words by Stuart Klein and the music also by Stuart Klein. In reality, How Great Thou Art is an old Swedish melody, exact origin unknown, but perhaps dates back to the 1800s, where it was written as O stor Gud, our great God, later translated into German, then Russian, and actually it was Stuart Klein who later came across it in Russia and the Ukraine when he was visiting there with his wife as English missionaries, and translated it into English. So we have him not really as a composer of it, but certainly as he adapted it to the English language, translated it to English, and that's what we sing today. The glory of this hymn, so well known, made famous largely by the Billy Graham Crusades and sung by George Beverly Shea at that time. And the words of Psalm 145 come to mind, certainly for the early verses. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised, and his greatness is unfathomable, from Psalm 145. Let us sing together all 4 verses in the sanctuary and safety of our own homes, with full voice, How Great Thou Art. Blessed Assurance. Inspired by the text from Hebrews 10, let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience, our bodies washed with pure water. As we've said before, looking down at the lower left, we see someone listed for words, in this case, Fanny Blind, lyricist, author, responsible for actually over 8,000 hymn texts. Quite remarkable. The composer of this tune is actually Phoebe Knapp, who was a hymn composer in her time. The two met, knew each other, and here's a case where the melody was written first, and Fanny, once upon hearing it, came up with the text virtually on the spot, legend has it. If you take a look at the lower right side, you see a single word, assurance. That is actually the name of this hymn tune. You'll find that in virtually every tune in the hymnal has a tune identified in the lower right corner. Sometimes it's the upper right, but usually lower right corner. Under that, you'll see some numbers and some additional information. Those numbers basically spell out the number of syllables per phrase. It enables music directors to actually swap out a text for any given hymn with another, say, more appropriate or more contemporary text with a familiar melody that is appropriate or supportive of that particular worship service's message. Blessed Assurance. Let us sing together. actually dates from 1887, when Daniel Towner actually wrote the melody. He was a musician, organist, choir director, and actually worked at a Methodist church in Binghamton, New York. Later served churches in Ohio and Kentucky, but actually was picked up by D.L. Moody in the late 1800s to accompany him, do some music work, and accompany him on his mission trips throughout the country. And it was at this point that during one mission trip, an interesting story, one of the attendees just stood up and said, "I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to trust and I'm going to obey." Well, it's said that he wrote this sentence down, and he sent it to a friend, a Presbyterian minister, Reverend John H. Sammis, who actually penned the poem that we know as to the lyrics of Trust and Obey. And he returned that writing to Daniel Towner, who worked and just wasn't happy with it and actually threw his compositional efforts in the trash. But here again, behind every great man, every great composer perhaps, is a great, loving, and supportive wife. No exception here, as his wife happened to be cleaning up the next morning and dug the papers out of the trash, sang through what her husband had written and said, "This melody you've written is just what is needed to carry this wonderful message." And I think she was right there. So let us join together in Trust and Obey. Thank you so much for joining us today for our safe distancing virtual hymn sing. If you have any comments or suggestions or actually requests, please feel free to contact us at the email you see listed here. We wish you well. And to quote the words of hymn writer Jeremiah E. Rankin, God be with you till we meet again. When life's perils thick confound you, put his arms unfailing around you. God be with you till we meet again. Blessings.